The EC inaugurated an 18-member committee last week, chaired by the boss of the commission herself, Charlotte.
And November, and nowhere in that election 2016 calendar is the issue of steering committee inauguration mentioned. So I and the New Patriotic Party do not know anything. We only knew of the inauguration of the steering committee through Joy FM website, My Joy Online FM. Let me repeat, the Electoral Commission cannot, and I think people would always say they are independent. For me, sovereignty rests with the people of Ghana, this country, that's enshrined in the 1992 Constitution. So they cannot do exclusive election management. Election management is an inclusive thing. It's an inclusive process, and all stakeholders must be included in anything that has effect on the organization of the elections.
Well, the Electoral Commission says that this team, this steering committee, is to help them ensure that we have a credible election on November 7.
You go and pack that committee with known NDC officers, and you don't say anything about it to other members of other political parties. What is the meaning of that?
You say known NDC members, the MPP has issues with the composition of this panel?
Dr. Ahe, I know him very well. He is the Deputy International Relations Officer of the National Democratic Congress. These are things that cast the integrity of the commission in dispute. And let me tell you, the confidence level of the commission itself has been going down from time to time. So it is about time that bold steps were taken, including inclusivity of the organization of elections. So after, we don't have to debate this issue. But what I'm saying is that it is casting a bad image for the organization of elections in our country. At the end of it all, I can assure you that New Patriotic Party will survive and win the election. Because I know of other countries like Senegal, where Dr. Wade, the former president, in Senegal, it is the Minister of Interior that organizes and supervises elections. In spite of that, Dr. Wade lost. He lost miserably. Because the will of the people is the will of God. And I can tell you, nobody can stand in the way of the will of the people.
Mr. McMahon, you're raising issues with the composition of the panel. Does it mean that the MPP wants the panel reconstituted?
We don't need that panel. We have run elections since 1990. If you talk about security, already the National Election Security Task Force has been inaugurated. And the Regional Task Force has been inaugurated. The NCCE, who are also on that committee, they are doing their own thing of educating the voters on issues. So what is the purpose of the steering committee? When you have a management of election professionals in the Electoral Commission, what are the directors of election, the director of research, the director of monitoring, the director of training, all those directorships under the Electoral Commission? What are they supposed to do? I'm telling you that steering committee is bogus. You make your own inference out of it.
So it should be scrapped? It should be scrapped?
I am saying it is bogus. If something is bogus, you ask me if it should be scrapped.
That was the 2016 campaign manager of the MPP, Peter McMahon. Well, the Convention People's Party and the Progressive People's Party, PPP, also raising similar concerns. First, listen to policy advisor of the PPP, Kofi Asamoah-Siao.
You would imagine that something like this, the composition and the inauguration of such an important committee of the EC, if they realized that it was important for the 2016 election, would have been discussed at the IPAC meeting. No such thing has been announced and been discussed at IPAC meeting. So it's therefore surprising that we had this inauguration done before an IPAC meeting was convened to discuss the matter. So if we have any issue at all, it is because it was done outside the IPAC, the Interparliamentary Advisory Committee, where we would have had an opportunity to make input and even suggest the criteria to be used in in forming the committee. I've looked at the list. You realize that there are basically representatives of state institutions, and their role as far as election 2016 is concerned might have been a consideration for their selection. But today, if it's the case that somebody has been confirmed to be a former executive office holder of the National Democratic Congress, it goes to a point where the Electoral Commission should have been aware of. They shouldn't take any step or do any act that go to the point that they are favoring the National Democratic Congress in this election. Already that suspicion is there, whether they are doing something like that or not.
Is that a feeling of the PPP based on this information?
Yeah, but you see, you don't confirm that perception, because perception in the minds of those who have it, to them, is reality. So you don't reinforce that by actions such as this. And if it's indeed confirmed that the gentleman is a member, a card-bearing member of the National Democratic Congress, I think it's unfortunate, and it could have been avoided. Confirms what we've been saying, that the parties were kept in the dark as far as the decision was concerned. We have been part of some discussions where, because of the inaccuracies registered by presiding officers, we recommended that graduates from the polytechnics and the universities should be engaged in this exercise. So we want to thank for the EC that was this committee, and the involvement of the National Service Secretariat as an institution was in furtherance to that kind of action. But we need to be sure that we don't engage in actions that will go to support the perception that we have. The committee's work, in my view, has to be defined, and there are terms of reference given. At this stage, the responsibility to conduct the free and fair elections that we all expect lies with the Electoral Commission. So they must make sure it happens. They can't, if you like, cede that responsibility to any subcommittee of it. But of course, it's a commission, so sometimes they want to have some of these committees in place, but in doing that, they need to be sure. There's something the PPP has been talking about. Look, it doesn't matter who represents anybody on a certain committee. If the systems you put in place is such that human interference and intervention is not possible, we don't care. You can put President Mahama as chairman of this committee. If he has to lose the election, he will lose. So the way we vote and how we do it, and the fact that we need to introduce systems that has, if like, element of verification and auditing, the electronic voting that we've been talking about, you can go and sit there and become NDC executive and all that. How are we even selecting the national service personnel that are supposed to be, if that is the decision, to man the polling station?
So that was policy advisor of the PPP, Kofi Asamoah-Sian. Communications director of the CPP, Kadri Abdul Rauf, also told my colleague Francis Aban on pause that the EC's action is unacceptable.
The idea of IPAP was actually formed so that when it comes to issues concerning election and stuff, all the political actors could come together and express their views as to the best way forward. But unfortunately, on an important issue like this, it was never actually brought to IPAC. And I actually also represent my party at IPAC on occasional instances. And I do not have any such knowledge concerning this particular development. So I do not think that the Convention People's Party is in any position to go or make case for something which is not, which actually has not been given broader discussion and consultation. So I think that the fact and the idea that it has been done on the blind side of IPAC, I think is something that raises questions. And also let me add that, for example, over the past few months, several organizations, pressure groups, and then political parties have raised questions concerning the integrity of the Electoral Commission, particularly the chairman of the Electoral Commission, as fingering her to be an NDC a person. And now if you allow the appointment of somebody like Dr. Ahi, who personally I know because I've met him in an UNDP program representing NDC before, to be part of it, certainly raise questions, and it goes somehow to reinforce the perception of people. And as a country, and then as a commission, I think that everything must be done by the commission to erase from the public mindset, issues that is likely to dent their integrity.
Okay.
It has to be made very clear. My party, we have not taken a clear position on the matter because it is a matter that is just emerging. My party is not privy to so many issues, but at the moment we are just taking cursory analysis of what is happening. And we are saying that, for example, if a known NDC person, somebody who is a deputy director of international relations of the NDC is put on the committee, it will only go to fuel the public perception that, the NDC is, hobnobbing with that of the EC, which would not be good for the electoral process in 2016. But I think that we have to make it quite clear that the CPP would definitely not encourage, a practice where, a decision will be taken without consulting, IPAC, because that is the essence of IPAC. Apart from that, IPAC has nothing to do. So, for example, for a significant, important decision like this, members of IPAC, we should be informed so that we can also bring our views to make it better. But now, if we just wake up one bright morning and then the EC says that, oh, we are forming a committee and we are inaugurating, we think that, maybe there's something hidden. And as a party, we would want to know everything. In fact, so the consultation should be broadened. The discussion should be broadened. The mandate of the committee should be explained.
So that was the communications director of the CPP, Kadri Rauf there. We've been thankfully joined on the line by political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Evans Agridako. I must say on the line as well is General Secretary of the PNC, Atik Mohammed. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Atik, on this matter. I'm wondering what the position of the PNC as well is. You had your colleagues in the other parties, MPP, CPP, and PPP.
Thank you very much, and let me take it evening to your viewers. For us, our position is very clear. What appears clearly from this whole arrangement is that the Electoral Commission is attempting by this particular act to abdicate its mandate to this supposed steering committee. And for us, that could pose a little problem. And when I say a little problem, I'm just being charitable. Because the Electoral Commission is required by law to undertake all the processes, leading to the elections and the elections themselves. And so if you set up a steering committee such as that which they have done, and my understanding of their responsibility is that they will oversee every process leading to the elections and actually will send over so many things on the day of election. That for me amounts to the Electoral Commission letting go its responsibility as far as the conduct of this year's election is concerned, and consigning that to that body called the steering committee. But having said so, again, as major shareholders, and by that I mean political parties, a major step such as this, we should have actually been invited to a meeting, either through the IPAC framework or any other platform or forum that the Electoral Commission chooses, to discuss with us, first, this idea, secondly, to feed us with the names of the people they have decided to constitute this particular body, so that on our own we can do due diligence checks on everybody who is mentioned. Because look, the credibility of this election depends on some of these things. That was not done.
So I think I get a sense, having listened to the
members of that committee actually have clear partisan affiliation. That for me destroys this very whole idea. In fact, it actually confirms the earlier point I made about the irrelevance of this whole steering committee idea. And so if you now have individuals who are very clearly partisan being members of that committee, and it is not one, my understanding is that it is more than one person whose identity as a clear partisan figure is found. That means that this entire committee has to be dissolved. And I go further to make the point that it should be disbanded.
Oh, very well, Atik.
That is understandable. Yes.
Atik?
Yes.
Mr. Mohammed, like the MPP, you have two key concerns: the fact that you were not consulted, also the composition of this panel.
And the last one has to even do with the relevance of this whole idea of steering committee. What indeed, in fact, what are they going to be doing? And if my understanding of what steering committees do is anything to go by, that means that the Electoral Commission, the leadership for that matter, are just going to take a back seat and allow the steering committee to run the processes of the elections. And that could pose a great danger. So I generally think that this whole idea of steering committee, novel as the name may sound, really and truly will not achieve the object for which we want the Electoral Commission, to achieve.
But let's look at the membership of this committee. It has representatives from the prison service, the Ghana Army, the Ghana Police Service, represented there by the Director of Operations. You have a representative from SHRAJ, from the Peace Council and all that. All these bodies play a major role in elections, Atik.
No, that's
Mr.
the point
Mohammed.
I'm making. Look, if we have an election task force, that is understandable. But when you say steering committee, unless, of course, there is the operational definition for the steering committee that the Electoral Commission has set up. But if the steering committee, properly so called, is what the Electoral Commission has set up, then I have a problem. An election task force is complementary. And for the most part, what they do is to ensure that there is a peaceful environment for the conduct of the election. But steering committee actually moves beyond the role that the task force was playing to doing things that are at the heart of this very process. And that is where our problem is.
Mr. Mohammed,
of course, the Electoral Commission is ready to come out and tell us the name steering committee may be misleading, but indeed the duties assigned to them are 1, 2, 3. Then we are clear about it. But if we are to go by the real meaning of steering committee and what steering committees do, I think this is problematic.
all right, do hold the line for me, Mr. Atik Mohammed, because Dr. Evans Agridakon is still on the line with us. Doctor, what do you make of this entire controversy?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good evening to your listeners. Prosecuting an election is not a child's play. That is why the Constitution has established a whole body, the EC, which is expected to exhibit a number of credentials, a number of attributes. It has to be impartial, it has to be non-partisan, it has to exhibit a high level of professionalism, among others. The idea is that the EC's posture and its actions and inactions, among others, must inspire confidence. And when they are able to inspire confidence in all of us, it helps even in the electoral process. Don't forget that this is a procedural democracy. And so what we are saying is that it's the procedures as important as the conclusion. And therefore, it is not for nothing that we have all kinds of constitutional provisions which will ensure the independence of such a body. Of course, you know how elections can be contentious because of the fundamental issue that is about political power. And who has political power has implication of how the resources of the state perhaps will be distributed. And if you look at Africa and look at Ghana and you see how some are impoverished and how the state is big, the existence or the presence of political power within any group is so significant. Don't forget, there is a democracy that all of us have a stake, and therefore, because you and I also trust that human beings have the capacity of undermining even the very rules that they have adopted, we need some constitutional guarantee.
So you feel the Electoral Commission should have consulted the political parties at least?
Well, if you, a number of things. One, if you have a body that will complement your effort, that is okay. Or that will ensure, because if you look at the composition from the president, these are major stakeholders. Before election, during elections, and after elections, all these critical actors have very significant roles to play. Security agents, you know that the police will not have the numbers to deal with all this, and that is why they bring in all the other security agents. If you look at the military, for instance, they have all kinds of operations supporting, the civil authority. So they have what they call military assistance to civil authority. And elections will be one of the areas that they will want to support the state. After all, what will be the value of an asset if that asset cannot be deployed for the benefit of the insurance stability of the state? So the military has that unique responsibility. So the other security agencies complementing the effort of the police and so on. Ordinarily, this is a matter for the police, but because we need to activate all the resources that are available to ensure that people will not undermine the process, we need to do that. We also would appreciate the significant role that the media place in all of these. Misinformation has the capacity of undermining the whole democratic experiment. And that is why the media committee's presence in all of these is also critical. But as a regulatory institution, they must also know what is happening and they can advise. What is not very clear, one, will be how those individuals were picked or were selected. If it's an institutional representation, then of course you cannot force any political party, for instance,
And Doc, that point, Dr. Evans Agredanko, brings us to the question of whether the EC erred in appointing a known member of the NDC in the first place. We know this man has now stepped down.
What I'm saying is that I doubt whether the EC would want to do any of that damage by appointing a known party member. I suspect, and we need to have these things from the EC, I suspect that they may have written to these institutions, and the institutions may have given those representatives to serve. What the EC should have done was perhaps to go behind and do some due diligence, some background check of these individuals to ensure. Of course, we are all political animals, but some are much more dangerous, serious political animals than others. And therefore, if we are going to have a committee of this nature dealing with such a vital, exercise as election, which really goes to the heart of our very existence as a democratic system, then you must be as impartial as possible. And in the process, do some due diligence and establish the background of some of these individuals. We all vote, yes, but some are die-in-the-wool party supporters, and you must.
So you feel the AC? You feel the AC did not do a good job of doing the necessary?
If it is established that these are die-in-the-wool party supporters, two things, not just the EC itself. The officials involved, themselves should have recused themselves in the process, because surely you are going to bring in conflict of interest, and that is why all the other political parties are raising red flags. And these are the things we need to avoid.
Very well.
We need to build consensus, yes, and making sure that what we do will receive the approval of majority of our people. That is the way to consolidate a democracy, yes.
Very well, Dr. Evans Agredanko, finally, before you leave us, the big question, should the steering committee, be reconstituted or not?
A number of things. I think two critical issues. They should tell us their mandate, what specific role they are going to play. If it's a steering, the name steering, I'm tempted to believe, support what I think is saying. If they tell us their mandate, then the designation may have to change in line with the mandates that they are given. Of course, I don't think that the EC is oblivious of the fact that they have an onerous responsibility. And I don't think that they will abdicate at this point and see the major function that they have to perform.
Thank you. Thank you so much, yes. Dr. Evans Agredanko, Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana with the Political Science Department. I've been joined now by convener of the pressure group Let My Vote Count Alliance, David Asante. In fact, they started all this with a press statement they released yesterday. I'm sure you're happy with the backing you're getting from the major opposition political parties now.
Let me say good evening to our viewers and then good evening to your good self. Well, we think this is a good development, but the fact of Dr. Karl Mark-Ahin pulling out of the committee or being withdrawn from the committee, or whichever way we would appreciate calling it, it really doesn't end there. That is not what we sought to do, or that is not what we're still seeking to achieve. We did not set out to call for the withdrawal of Dr. Karl Mark-Ahin from the committee. This is what we're talking about. The committee must be dissolved. This is where we started from. We mentioned 3 noble Ghanaians who were put on that committee. We talked about Dr. Karl Mark-Ahin, we talked about Joe Whittal of Shraj, and we talked about Mr. Asumia from Peace Council.
So these men, should these men step down? That wouldn't be enough.
My brother, the very tacit admission and open admission of Dr. Karl Mark-Ahin being an NDC person, you know what? It's a big indictment to the Electoral Commission of Ghana. You remember what the commission told us? We have set up an independent election steering committee.
But the argument is
the
that
committee is neutral.
The argument is that they wrote to a state institution, the National Service Secretariat. They presented this name to them. He's Director of Finance and Administration there.
My brother, Afraid it makes the matter more convoluted and exposes their responsibility on the part of the Electoral Commission. An election management body of this country, and we're getting into a crucial election like 2016, and you set up a committee and give the other state agencies or other civil society organizations the opportunity to present reps, and you don't do a background check, you don't do due diligence.
Very well,
it's
David.
not the responsibility of you and I to go do that for the EC.
Very well, David, let me take the final word from you on this. You've indicated that you could be demonstrating over this matter should the EC fail to heed your call.
Yeah, but upon a second thought, I'm beginning to have an interesting idea. We let My Vote Count Alliance are just of the opinion this is a straightforward matter. We talked about the political bias nature of the group because the EC lied to us and told us it's an independent body. And it's come out to mean that the group never is or was independent from its inception.
You're doubting the independence of the EC.
It is absolutely not an independent body. And we have been vindicated. So the EC must come out, bow the head in shame, apologize to Ghanaians. And kill the committee.
All right, thank you very much, David Asante, convener of pressure group Let My Vote Count Alliance. That'll be it for today's big story. My name is Kwache Afreniama.